After the thrills of Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, the IndyCar Open Series takes a trip southeast to the village that is Brooklyn, Michigan, host of the Michigan International Speedway, where we'll go for 100 laps inside the 2-mile-long track for round 2 of the season. What the track holds for us is yet to be seen, but nevertheless, we're in for a thrilling round, to put it mildly. Well, welcome to another Race Spot broadcast here. I am Lorenzo Bonder, again for filling in for Arjuna Kankipati. I am with my co-commentator, Wilson Nato, and on the cameras is Tyler Maxson, who is also providing the car cameras together with Isfan Ballo from Track Camps 22. And I'm already throwing it up to you, Wilson, first and foremost. Good evening. And if you guys can see also, basically our live times are at RaceSpotWTF.WTF/Indy. Wilson, probably I was talking with you, fastest track of the season in terms of speed average, not the fastest lap of the season, that is for Richmond. But nevertheless, it's probably one of the hardest tracks for you to overtake because of the arrow wash. And I was looking, that lower side can be also the hardest part for you to overtake because there is no grip at all.
Yeah, that's right, Lorenzo. And first and foremost, good evening to you and everyone else watching another RaceSpotTV broadcast. And agree with you, it will be quite tricky race for everyone in tonight's race because the track temperature for tonight's race is quite challenging. And the track is fast. There are few parts of the track that can play some games on you, and maybe you can end up spinning your car and losing the control of the car. So that bottom line, as you have mentioned, it's pretty much the line you want to go when you are trying to full send in the outside and try and drift different moves to get rid of the air wash. But it's not easy to control the car as much as it seems in the broadcast. So if we can have a few cautions tonight with drivers trying to explore that line and being caught in surprise and maybe a small chance of get a wreck or maybe even a big one. So let's see. I'm pretty excited for tonight's race. In terms of strategy, we pretty much choose stop strategy if you don't have any caution, which I don't believe that will happen. But let's see. We never know. And they're really looking for tonight's race, especially with so many talented drivers in the grid for tonight, Lorenzo.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. The last time we actually covered this was actually the Lion Hunter Speedway Series. Not the same car. It's totally different. It was in the DW12. This is the IR18. You have foot and car adjustments. You didn't have it in the DW12. So it's more like foot-like related than anything else. So the lines were a little bit harder for you to do, but we only had one caution in there. As we are having qualifying underway, still have about over a minute left, but in the pole position is Hugo Olsen in the pole sitter with a time of 32.34438. Not far behind is Alexis Newsom with the lap of 32.460. She was actually on the podium of that Speedway Series, so she's looking strong. I think that's one of her favorite tracks in this season. And third place is Adam Blocker, I was going to say 37 hundredths of a second behind his teammate in Powerslide Motorsports, Hugo Olsen. But everybody basically chunked up one together here on the track. But there are still a few cars out on the track to try to do their laps. I think the only car I saw might have been John Silva's and also Aaron Roof's, but Aaron's already tucked back to the pits. And we still have a few more seconds here. So a few facts about the track, which is not being used anymore in the IndyCar season. It is the last race being ran here in 2007, won by Tony Kanaan. But we've seen action here on the 2020 season and I think that was season 1 or season 4 of 2021, because we didn't have that on the previous season. But it was a very frantic race nevertheless. Michigan is the only 2-mile oval this season. Again, the second longest in length because we go to Pocono next. And the bankings are about 18 degrees. The start-finish line is about 12 degrees, and the backstretch is about 5 degrees in banking, so all banked. As qualifying is over, we're going to go into our starting grid for this race. So at the pole position is Hugo Olsen for Powerslide Motorsports, followed by Alexis Newsom. Adam Blocker is third, followed by Adam Crane, rounding out P4. Tony Shalwin and Robert Malechka, which was the winner of the Speedway Series last time by here in Michigan, rounding out the pole row 3. Austin Aspedy and Ed Roofs round out the fourth row. Alex Van der Sand and Connor Harrington round out the top 10 with AJ Mulseman and Matt Hollybaugh in P11, P12. We go to P13 with Antonio Alvarez and Chris Wilhite in P14 and P13 and P14. Team Tomes and Rob Ungernikes is P15 and 16. Andrew Marquez, Jonathan Oshalim are P17 and 18. Carlos Ruiz, Matthew Thurner, John Silva, Marco Aurelio Brazil, and Andrew Wood round out your 23 grid here in the track. And I'll throw it up to you really quickly. What would be the strategies if you're in the front and if you are in the middle of the pack for this race, Wilson?
Well, pretty much I'm in the middle of the pack. I will try to save as much fuel as I can and try to postpone my pit stop as much as I can to have better tires at the end of the race. And if I'm ahead, I pretty much will try to keep swapping with my teammate, and or the other car that is side by side with me, so I can keep my track position, because we know how important track position is nowadays with all the air wash and how hard it is to overtake. But yeah, I think we'll see a lot of drivers playing with different strategies, and even more interesting as long as the yellow flags and the cautions came out. How we'll have to see how the teams and the drivers will play with different strategy and how they will adjust their strategies throughout the race.
It will be interesting, nevertheless. So we were talking about maybe fuel could be up to 44 laps, 43 laps, depending on how you save this fuel. But you're going to have to go for a two-stop, nevertheless. We're looking at Hugo Olsen. He will actually lead us out into this field. They're basically on the apron, trying to line themselves up in the grid. Let's remember, it's 100 laps, basically a two-lap stop here in this race. You're probably going to have to make around 189.27 liters in total per fuel. Per fuel, but in fuel related, if that's you want to go in gallons, that's about 50.5 gallons, right there in the average margin as they round out in the turn number 3. Wilson, if you have to make an early pick in this race, who'd you pick? And don't put Powerslide. You don't have to be biased here, by the way.
I would say Robert Malechka. He's a very strong driver, and maybe I will pick his name for tonight's race.
All right, picking up the winner from the Lionheart Speedway Series as we're about to go green. They're rounding out turn number 4. The pace car is leading them into turn number 1. Remembering that is a 100 laps, and in this case, Hugo Olsen leads the field out of turn 4. Pace car is in. The Barty flagman is actually with the green flag ready. Philip Cross round 1 as we go green flag. We're on the hunt for 100 laps at the Michigan Speedway. Hugo Olsen already opening up a large margin, about half a second on Alexis Newsom, as we already have our first flag, first yellow flag of this race. And looks like that was in the middle of the pack, just trying to find who was actually involved in this incident here, Wilson.
Carlos Ruiz, he's just spun by himself right in the middle between corners 1 and 2. Exactly in one of those tricky parts that we were talking about earlier, because right in the middle of that black seam, there's a difference in the elevation of the track, so that sometimes can make you instant spinning. It was unfortunate for Marco as well. He apparently is not having luck in this track, because in a couple seasons ago he had the same issue in the first lap in the same corner. So yeah, unfortunately for Marco and Carlos, the race is over.
Yeah, you can see Carlos Ruiz's car just stepping out on its rear. I think a little bit more weight jacker than anticipated for the number 15 car on this grid. And now you can see from Marco Aurelio Brazil that he was just standing right in the middle of his way. Nothing that Marco could do in this situation. That is really unfortunate. So we're already 2 cars out in this track. To be very honest, I expected to all drivers make it out of lap one alive, so caught the commentator by surprise. One thing though, this is one of these tracks that yellow flags change a whole lot of dynamic in this race, and judging from the Speedway series, the Lionheart Speedway series we covered here last week at RaceSpotTV, the yellow flag, and I think it was the only yellow flag we had in that race, basically changed the entire scope of the race.
Yeah, for tonight's race, I think it's too early. If we have only this caution, I think we'll pretty much keep all the drivers will pretty much keep with the two-stop strategies. But I must say, Lorenz, I was not surprised to have some that early caution, because in the first lap, this car is quite tricky, you know, even with different rate jacket and different setups. We usually have a lot of oversteer in the first corner and a lot of understeer right in turns 3 and 4. So the driver must be prepared, you know, to handle with the traffic and which line he will choose to prevent the air wash as well. So it's not the easiest thing to do in the first couple laps of even, especially if you are in fresh tires. Sometimes when you have older tires, not that hard. But, you know, yeah, let's see if the other drivers will learn from the lesson that Carlos unfortunately had early in the race, and keep a good race in a long stint on the green flag.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things here, despite what happened in lap one, basically cars were nearly lined up 4 wide, and this is probably one of the fewest tracks we can actually go for wide here, Wilson, because basically the start-finish line in the backstretch kind of allows you to go that extra length, and you can see cars just sticking basically into the inside line. But again, you can use the apron that was used in qualifying. It's not surprising at all, because it is such a shallow banking transition from the bottom part of the track into the top part of the track, or even middle part if you want to talk about it. The car doesn't lose a grip at all, and this is one of the few funny things I was actually looking at while doing research for this race. This track was actually the base for the Auto Club Speedway. The current layout, unfortunately, is going to be defunct because they wanted to make the race a little bit more exciting for NASCAR standards, because it is only used in NASCAR nowadays. Now they're turning that 2-mile speedway into a half-mile, but still, nevertheless, it's interesting to see a track like this being used as a base for another track in another place.
Yeah, you can afford to use the apron in the tri-oval, but it's not the easiest things to do. Sometimes, even if especially if you're in old tires, you can lose the control of the car and end up wrecking the cars side by side with you. But it's definitely doable. It's just something that the driver must be trained and prepared to do that. Otherwise, he will cause a wreck. And yeah, and sometimes we can see 4 wide, and that does not seem much crazy at all, because they are all looking for clean air, which is even safer than run behind the other car and get the air wash and running wide.
Yeah, and now everybody's actually now looking up so they don't get overtaken by the outside line. You can only take on the outside line during restarts. Pace car is now on the outside of turn number 4, tucking back into the pit lane. Hugo Olsen will lead us out for the first restart of this race. We are going to yellow flag anytime soon. There he goes, Hugo Olsen leading us off. 97 laps to go. We are green flag all over again. A little bit of a checkup on the field right around Matt Hawley. I think AJ Wilson and Chris Bullhigh were involved in this. Maybe some wing damage for one of those drivers. But so far, Hugo Olsen now being overtaken by the lead by Alexis Newsom. She's now in the lead of this race with 5 laps in, and everybody just now trying to find themselves here. Hugo Wilson as now Hugo goes back to the lead, and this isn't a strategy we saw in the Speedway Series. The leader sharing the draft, and Adam Crane just have to tuck back his car back, took the car back, and just beat the passenger off chaos.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the. This is definitely one of those tracks where it's worth to keep swapping, so you can gain like a 1.5, maybe even 0.2 in terms of lap time. So that not only guarantees you the track position, So if you're not concerned with fuel saving, that will not be a problem. But that time advantage will always allow you to keep the third position, and also to try to break the pack, so the other cars behind will be harder for them to keep up on the draft.
And you can see the line is being done over here majorly. The outside line being used the most, and it's a line that you basically get the most grip. You can only use, not that you can only use, but you basically going to use the bottom line, use it majorly for defending. As now Olsen is going to switch back the lead against Newsom. So Olsen now the leader once again. Adam Crane and Blocker now trying to just find places where they can tuck in, not getting majorly affected by the draft. And Maletska so far having a good race so far, P5 in the standings. No major standouts in the first few laps of this race here. I think the only major standout for now might be Andrew Wood, the biggest mover of this race with 5 positions gained.
Yeah, Andrew's always a strong driver and a talented at the same time, with a lot of experience. Also can have a great finish here for tonight's race. And it is interesting to see Lorenzo there playing the swap strategy here in the race, and I'm pretty sure Blocker, Crane, and a few guys ahead behind them are also playing the fuel save strategy. So there's a lot to see to come into play throughout the race, but a very interesting start to see the strategies and the drivers working on the strategy early in the race.
Yeah, basically, I think that first yellow flag might have thrown a little bit of some of the wrenches in the long run, or might even help them a little bit, because now Hugo goes for the lead. Blockers now go for P3. Malechka on the outside of Crane. Now a little bit of every game, getting a little bit cluster more now at the exit of turn number 2. 3 wide in the back stretch. Now drivers get a little bit in the scuffle as Newsoms go back into the lead. And everything now is just decided to break loose here at the Michigan track.
Yeah, and we were able to see Blocker trying that move right next to the white line in turn 1, trying to get the draft from Hugo right now. And it's not hard to keep on that bottom line, because especially you scrub your tires and lose a lot of speed out of turn 2. So let's see how many laps Adam can afford to do that. So probably he now is starting to thinking to work with his teammate up front to keep swapping.
And talking about swapping, there goes Blocker on the inside line for 2, and now he's into the lead of this race. Nice move from Adam Blocker, and now Hugo Olsen is going to be able to go on the outside. Adam Crane trying to follow suit on that outside line for Adam Blocker, but Blocker led for one more lap. Not for one more lap, but actually his first lap led into his race. Now the car gets wobbly on the inside. Newsom has to check up, and that inside line looks a little bit more dangerous at this time by here, Wilson.
Yeah, it is always a danger and a risk when you get there by the bottom line, because there's always a chance that you can get the understeer and end up going too high and crashing someone else outside of you. But yeah, it was a tough decision from Blocker, and we are seeing a good aggression early in this race. I honestly didn't think it was great to see this right now.
At 3 wide going to turn number 1, and Blocker actually made work out of it. Aspity, that first car on the outside line right behind Hugo Olsen. Now he's going to go for it. Vandersand with a major overlap, going to 3 spots up now, actually putting pressure on Blocker on the inside line, and Aspity's just playing patience, trying to find that run, going for that outside line and possibly go for that slingshot on Hugo Olsen to lead his first lap of the race. But whoever wants it most, I think, might be Vandersand with a really good run, but have to check up on the entry of the corners.
Yeah, and the race seems a bit more packed than expected, but which will be interesting for us to see right now. Let's see how that strategy will work.
And looks like a little bit of a mirror race. So while we saw the Lionheart Speedway Series here in Michigan, again, different cars, but basically the idea is the same. All cars going fast at about 222 miles per hour down the straight. As if you guys were wondering about track conditions, I can give you those track conditions. The track on its ambient is 23 Celsius degrees, and on the track also is 43 Celsius degrees, right about 110 Fahrenheit. There are some winds to the southwest, which won't affect the cars way too much, about 4 kilometers per hour, and humidity is relatively okay, about 48%. As now Aspity leads his first lap, and Hugo Olsen now takes back the lead once again. I have, and this is one of the questions I've been really wanted to pose you here, Wilson. In these kind of pack races, what kind of pack do you prefer to drive the most? Do you really want to drive the most in those large packs where everything can get crowded and you can wait for a big one, you might get benefited from it, or do you like to run in these small packs, shoot three, maybe four cars like we're having at the top of the lead, and again, you also take the lead once again from Aspity, where you can actually make up the most ground and distance themselves from the other large groups.
I mean, in terms of fun, the larger the pack, the funnier it is, you know. But it depends on what is in the table. I mean, if there's a prize money or something like that, of course I would prefer a race that's not that packy, because it will be pretty much safer to get and to be alive at the end of the race. But yeah, a huge pack is always fun, especially those 3 wides, 2 wides all the time. So it's a lot of fun, and I'm pretty sure that the drivers are having a pretty good time, and challenging times ahead of them for tonight's race.
Yeah, it's challenging, nevertheless. It's challenging, all right, as Venderson goes now on the inside of Aspity. Is about to challenge P2 out of the number 7 car in the pack. Anderson with a really good race so far, started 9th all the way up to P3, challenging P2 and even P1 at some points. Again, the bottom line offering a little bit of grip on the mid apex, but then that latter portion, the high line is going all the way up as Aspity now the outside line, trying to challenge Hugo Olsen into turn number 1, but Hugo getting the good runoff, and Aspity just have to tuck back a little bit and brings Venderson into that inside line and collects up everything once again.
And a very strong start from Austin. Starting on P7, he's already having the chance to fight for the win and to be up front. So very strong start for him, which is one of the drivers that we must keep an eye on for tonight's race as well.
And meanwhile, also Robert Moleczka finally making up some ground as well on the inside line, challenging those guys up in the top line. Will maybe be able to get P2. Here, there's another car trying to follow behind, but is not going to be able to actually come closer. I think that was Aaron Roofs was on the bottom line trying to follow Moleczka. And now Venderson goes in the inside lap for the launch, and he will take the lead for maybe his first lap of the race, that he will actually be able to lead with some efficiency. But you can see Hugo Olsen and Aspity going with a very hungry look, and Olsen now retakes the lead out of Venderson.
Yeah, Aaron Roofs had a bit of a moment right in turn 1, almost spun his car, but he was able to control it. Just lost a few spots, but he's still in the fight.
And still in the fight here, and that's what matters most. If you are in this pack so far, you are in the race. Now Blocker on the inside line as Venderson goes for the lunge, will retake the lead once again. Now Aspity looking a little bit feisty on the outside line, might have the run, but will get checked up by Venderson, and that also checks up Hugo Olsen in the entry on turn number 1. They might go side to side on the exit of turn number 1. We are 22 laps in, and I was just looking at the radio. I think Shawin just had a very scary move, and just looked at Aaron Roofs' ball as we're still watching this lead lap action from the Austin Aspity's look on the cam. A little bit crowded whatsoever, but we nearly had another yellow flag because Roofs' car just decided to get very loose out of 2.
Yeah, that was scary, but once again, very nice control of the car, so it was a very interesting thing to see, and hopefully he's not... he didn't crash and we're still in a green flag.
In these situations, whenever the car gets loose, and especially out of the turn number 2 and 4, and you can still manage it, how do you keep manage of it? Does throwing the weight jackers do any difference at all? Like immediate difference, or you might have to rely more on the accelerator or anything of the sort to keep that car on track?
Yeah, when we realize that you're losing your rear end, you just have to work with your pedals and with your steering wheel input, because there's not time enough to click in the brake jacket and try to do that. The first thing you try to do is always use the steering wheel to save the car, and then you think about front bars and brake jacket for the next corner, you know, to change the balance of the car, and even to bring the tire temperature to the lower temperature, because when you do the kind of snap oversteer or those slides, the tire temperature has a huge build-up, so you need to take care and look after tires as well.
Yeah, as Moleczka now will regain the lead once again. He actually led the last lap, and the Lionheart Speedway's back-to-back winner series here at the track, in a very feisty win. Had to defend from Alexis Newsom and another driver at the final laps, in a very, very good fuel-saving strategy. So basically every single driver trying to follow the path of fuel saving, and we're about 25 laps in, so we are now 1/4 of the way here completed in the Michigan Speedway.
Yeah, Lorenzo, and another driver that we should keep an eye on, it's Chris Wheelheight. Despite not having a good race so far, he's always a strong driver, especially by the end of the race, and he has a huge experience as well. He's always the kind of driver that is always in the top 3, top 5s, so let's keep an eye on him.
Now let's keep an eye on Wheelheight to see if he actually makes up a little bit of ground. He's P11 at the standings at this current moment, just following AJ Mulsman. You're one of those drivers that might have got a little bit of a checkup by Matt Hollyball on the restart, and I think Hollyball got affected by it because he has apparently some wing damage into it. He's losing a lot of ground to the other drivers. But let's keep the focus on the front because this has been really good. No major incidents while trying to follow suit one another. In the meanwhile, only one yellow flag in this race. Wilson, let's make an early bet. I'll put about 2 more yellow flags in this race. How many more yellow flags do you think this will happen?
I hope we won. Let's see. Because I really would like to see the teams playing strategy, like short pitting to try to get a huge undercut advantage and working together in swapping. Because here they will probably be 1 lap down, so it will be pretty much a risky strategy. But if the caution doesn't come out, it will be worth to do that. So I would like to see only maybe 1 or even no cautions, because it will be very interesting to see those kind of different strategies playing around today. Let's see.
Let's see. Again, the Speedway Series had only 1 yellow flag, and we actually had a very lengthy race the last time we went by over here. We basically got nearly a full hour in this race, more than we expected to have. So a little bit more friction than anticipated, but nevertheless, it's good racing in the Michigan, located in a village south of the capital of Ann Arbor, located in the I-10 or I-12 highway of Michigan, as Malechka and Vandersen now changing positions again, back to lead. That's their, I think, 6th or 7th in a row they've been changing here in this track. Olsen, Aspany, Blocker, Crane, and Marquez. I haven't talked about Marquez all race long here. Wilson started P17, making some moves up. Got a little bit of a good restart over here because of the checkup, and now figuring in the top 10.
Yeah, Andrew Marquez is always a driver with good experience as well in the series. Always trying to get some moves. Didn't have the best start for tonight's race, but was able to gain some spots here. And again, we'll see what he can do. Probably he's racing by himself, so will not be the easiest task for him to try to win the race. But always a good driver, and we also should keep an eye on him.
And now Malechka and Vandersen changing spots once again. We are approaching in about 10 laps, I would say 10 laps or so here, Wilson, our first pit stop of the race, right about lap 41, 42 might be our, I would say our start of our pit stop window. Maybe that would close around lap 50 or 48, something like that. If you're in the middle of the pack, I think you could go up to 50, but you have to make a little bit of a huge commitment to go that gap, but it's very much doable, right?
I think so. I think it will be doable, especially because when you're on that huge amount of draft, you can afford to bring your fuel map to like 3, 4, maybe sometimes even 5, and don't lose the draft. So there's always a huge amount of fuel saving by doing that. So I'm pretty sure that some of those drivers are doing that right now and trying to save as much fuel as they can.
And again, now the switch back into the lead, Malechka, now Vandersen taking from Malechka once again. Hugo Olsen just following in the 3rd car of the pack, and we've been talking about this. I think the best example has to be Indianapolis during the Indy 500. Being the 3rd car back is not the easiest place to be, depending on how big in terms of pack racing we are talking about here, Wilson, because the share draft doesn't help you at all if you are that third car in the back, if you really are trying to make some moves.
Yeah, especially if you get the dirty air and when you're committed to the bottom line. Sometimes the same way we are seeing you also doing right now. If you don't do that move very correctly, you can be get caught by surprise and lose the control of your car. So yeah, pretty interesting thing to see how you can manage your track position, but at the same time try to feel safe and don't wreck the other cars ahead of you or side by side with you.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of a trust and commitment, but then again, they've been driving, I would say, for the past 3-4 years all together in leagues and things like that. So I think they gained pretty much a big trust over one another, what they have to do in about pack racing. So it's really very, very good to see these drivers committed in driving clean and driving fair, but hard as well. So they don't give any other openings to the other drivers. But nevertheless, we are lap 36. Maleczka leads the field also once again into the back stretch. Van der Sande will actually follow suit, go for that overtake, but he doesn't get a good run on the back stretch. Got a little bit loose, but you finally got that opening on the entry of turn number 3. As looking at the back here, just trying to see who that. That's Will Hyde. It just looks like he's dropping to the back a little bit, and we are starting to see the forming of a second pack, not far behind from that first pack of the field.
Yeah, Chris is leading that pack, trying to don't lose that draft ahead of him. Otherwise, that can cause him serious problems later on the race. So that's probably why Will Hyde and Toms are trying to work right now to catch up that draft ahead and keep the race as a single pack for as we are seeing right now.
And what impresses me even more with that is that despite only having one caution so far in this race, only had one car involved in it that is actually out of two cars that are officially out of the race, which are Carlos Ruiz and Marco Aurelio Brazil, which had been the two cars involved in that incident specifically. But in a track that provides pack racing, is so close to one another. Basically, all running cars are within the lead lap. Even Hollyball, which is struggling very much, and Oshlim as well, and Harrington, which is just tucked out of the pit lane. So he will be the first lap car in this field. Looks like they're all okay so far, and quite impressive. They're all within relatively safe range from one another.
Yeah, and you know, Lorenzo, there's a friend of mine that always says that this is kind of a knife of two edges, because when the race situation is quite challenging, the drivers used to be more safe, you know, it's like a survivability instinct. So sometimes when we have those pretty much cold tracks, we see a lot of aggression and people wrecking each other more often than when we have a challenging situation. So yeah, pretty much probably that's what they are thinking. That's what's going on through their minds right now.
Yeah, basically activating that Bear Grylls mindset as Van der Sande goes into a deep line into the inside, so actually he can get a little bit of grip in that car. Car looks like he was actually losing the exit out of turn number 2, fighting side by side with Maleczka, but no, there comes Van der Sande into the pit lane. So the first car of the top 5 and even top 10 that is actually tucking down into the pit lane. So here we go, Wilson. Actually, the pit open is actually officially now open, because Maleczka will come into this lap, Aspedy as well.
Yeah, it's open, and probably in the next couple laps we might see a lot of action of cars going to their pit lanes and trying to show up their strategy and see how that will work for them.
Yeah, looking here, Aspedy Wolves, Maleczka, Aspedy. I think that is also Marquez coming into the pit lane. John Silva was actually out of the pit lane on this. I was going to say 2 laps ago, but he had some issues, I think, on the 31st lap of the race, because he pitted on the first one, on the first caution. Will Hyde will now come into the pit lane. Apparently, some other cars might come in as well.
It'll be interesting to see how. No, Hugo is speeding. I was going to share that. It will be interesting to see Hugo and Adam working together. But Hugo just came to the pit stop, probably because he had a lot of clean air and was not able to save as much fuel as Adam could.
Yeah, now everything is gonna get a little bit clustered because that's the dangerous area, right, Wilson? Because now you got the cars that are coming into the pit lane, are doing their service. I saw Hugo Olsen actually missing his pit box by a fraction of a second, so that will make him lose a few spots here. That is unfortunate for the Swede as he tucks outside of pit lane. No losses in the pit lane whatsoever, but in a general sense, I think once it comes back on track, we'll lose maybe 1-2 spots here in the field, Wilson.
Yeah, that's right, and that's why we always try to practice as much as we can. Not only going to the pits, but also trying to break in the limit to get the best in lap and the best out lap as you could, because that could maybe sometimes represent like 1 or 2 seconds of advantage, and that could be the time you need to get out of the dirty air and get some advantage to win the race.
Yeah, and looking here, he comes back right behind Austin Aspity and Andrew Marquez. So, yeah, I think effectively he might have lost maybe 2-3 positions in this pack, as the majority of the pack was now coming out of the track. Well, that's kind of understand. Jungernikes, Bolseman, and I think that was Andrew Wood as well that is coming back into the track. The only cars that haven't pitted so far have been Adam Crane and Alexis Newsom, which now are coming into the pit lane.
Yeah, let's see how strategy will work for those drivers, especially Alexis and Adam Crane. You know, that we can compare their in-lap and out-lap times later on, but let's see how the strategy will work for those drivers who were able to save the most of fuel throughout the grid.
Yeah, now Blocker coming into P3 effectively, and he will be right behind Van der Sande and Moletska, which have been these 2 cars, and we've seen this the last time we covered this. You know, those cars that actually managed to get a little bit of a jump on the other ones, getting some advantage, and the gap that Moletska possesses on Blocker has been around nearly a second on the Power Slide Motorsport and your teammate, as we're looking into the drivers that are Crane and Newsom coming out of the pit lane, and let's see where Crane is actually come by. He's going to come by right by the leader, so Crane's going to be blocking that inside line for Van der Sande. He's not going to be able to make that move, so Crane effectively will be in the top 3 of this race, and that will bring Blocker in, and I think that will bring also Ungenikes in, and maybe Hugo Olsen as well, with the huge back right behind him.
Yeah, it was a blend of outcomes between Crane and Alexis, because for Crane that worked pretty much well, as he was able to get back on the track pretty much close to the leaders, while Alexis was a little bit behind, probably some minor issue on the pitch entry. But yeah, at least they are all keeping working their draft right now, which is still with chance to lead the race and to bring more fun to the race.
Oh, Newsom actually hit. Talking about Newsom, he actually hit the outside barrier, the safe barrier out of turn number 4. That car will be damaged. I don't know if there will be damage on the engine itself, but the car from Newsom looks like it is in a little bit of trouble. So very interested to see if he actually has some damage on the suspension out of that car, even though she actually grazed the wall. But into turn number 1 of 4 now, she actually grazed on the entry in turn number 3, and that car looking a little bit problematic here, Wilson.
Yeah, and do you remember me saying early in the race when I told that the car has a lot of understeered off turn 3 when we have a fresh tire? So yeah, that was probably the issue that Alexis had. So let's see if she can keep on the pack and fighting for the race.
Yeah, and talking about the back, everybody's back went together like one big happy family in a cookout, because now the gap basically to one driver to 100 is right around the half a second to maybe 1/3 of a second, because now Moletska will go once again on Van der Sande and go back into the lead, and everybody else now just one altogether. Gap first to, I was going to say P13 is about 2 seconds and a half. Then everything increases if you are John Sylvan, Connor Harrington, right about P4, P15, which is about 4 seconds.
Yeah, hard task for Connor and for John to get back on the draft of that pack. They will have to work pretty well here to be able to make up that difference. But let's see, it's not easy, but there's a small chance for them as yet.
Now, I know, John, I can actually go a little bit of biased commentary over here, because I race these things. Basically, the people that see me race, I try to race. I try not to be a pleb in the track, but basically what happens is John is actually using his race for more experience to try to test the how actually he fares in top splits, because this is actually a really good top split so far. Really clean race, only one yellow flag, and again, everybody bunched up, went together.
Yeah, and that kind of a learning curve is always worth, because it's not easy, to just start joining top splits and racing against all those experienced drivers. So sometimes you just have to race and to think yourself, just to get experience, to relax, to try to chill out and don't crash, and to get experience. So step by step, you can increase your experience and be more competitive race by race, season by season.
Yeah, and one other thing is that it's the difference of how you're racing ovals and also how you're racing the road tracks, because we have that mix of both things, right? We have the best of both worlds, but the style of racing that you have road to ovals is so different. You can have pack racing and road racing, sure, but it's much different, and it works in a different sense how the normal oval races will work, because you don't have the weight jackers and things like that. You have basically the ARBs and the push to passes in the road races, so you have to manage that instead of the weight jackers and the ARBs over here.
Yeah, and I will go even further, Lorenzo, in addition to that, because we could break down road races into kind of different races. Those road races when we have street courses and courses like Formula 1 tracks, and also in ovals, we have short ovals, in speedway races, which are completely different races despite being ovals. But yeah, so that's the beauty of the series, and yeah, that's what makes the most excitement, to see those drivers handling with those different tracks and different set of skills required to perform very well on those different tracks.
Absolutely, and now Maletzka into the lead once again. We were looking a few moments back on how Adam Crane is managing through the traffic. He's P3 so far. The VS satellite driver is actually faring. If I recall correctly, he's the current leader in the IndyCar iRacing series, the current champion, of course. But he's also having a good season in the longer runs, where we try to mimic the real life IndyCar, the Verizon IndyCar series. Remember, you were talking about city racing. We have ISOWC coming into round number 4 at Long Beach, so I can't wait what the Californian street track has to reserve with the infamous turn 11 hairpin, and that will be a very interesting race to see. Now the last coverage will be done here at RaceSpotTV. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it as well, Lorenzo, especially if those that amount of experienced drivers on the roadside. So yeah, it will be pretty interesting to see how they will handle in the Long Beach circuit.
And just a quick correction. Thank you, Tyler Maxon, our producer. Is the NTT IndyCar series. Blame my racing for saying Verizon. Playing the prank on me. Commentator stuff. Anyway, well, let's get back into the lead once again. And one driver I really want to talk about that has been quiet and had a mega first stint, and climbed up to the top 10. Rob Ongonites here, Wilson, because he's been quiet. It started P16, kind of like our friend that was a P17, Andrew Marquez, but had a little bit of trouble in the pit lane. And Ongonites now faring 7, no the chase of Aspedy in P6, and having a really good race so far.
Yeah, doing his race. I mean, he's did a pretty good stint trying to save fuel as well, and I'm pretty sure he's just trying to keep saving fuel once again, and just hoping that the guys ahead of them had some issues on their next pit stop, so he can leapfrog some new spots during his stop. But yeah, another interesting race to see here by Rob.
And another interesting race today by Rob. I think that is also A.G. Mulsuman on the inside of turn number 1, trying to chase Van der Sande, trying to go side by side, try to doze off a little bit on the accelerator so he can get a good run. But working that inside line, Mulsuman featuring a very special livery for this race. He's in support of the Pride Month, supporting the LGBTQ cause. So good to see someone raising awareness for that cause, and still driving strong here on top 5.
And not to mention that it's always a pleasure to see the cars race with the rainbow colors. So not only due to the fact he's racing, the beauty of those colors itself speaks by itself.
Yeah, true that, and also the livery looks really good over here. Even though he's dropping spots a little bit back, there's Hugo Olsen on the outside, but now Blocker is going to give him a little bit of a draft to share with, so he can actually go up. And now Blocker, who might be the first guy that might have challenged that top three of Crane and Maletka and Vanderson as they go nearly 3 wide, and Boltzmann had to check up a little bit on the extra out of turn number 1.
Yeah, Lorenzo, another interesting thing just to note here is how the track temperature, it's pretty much like being a roller coaster, because we started in 42, we went like 46, came back down to 39 Celsius, and once again 46. So that changes dramatically as to the drivers, how they can handle the corners and the weight jacket and the in-car too. So really challenging to see they're showing their skill here and to keep the clean race so far.
Yeah, still keeping the clean race so far, and making those adjustments on the fly. I tried sometimes. I tried for the 500. Again, I'm a plebeian on the ovals. I am still learning, but it's good to see and try to work that racecraft nevertheless. And good to see everybody still bunched up one together. Gap from the 1 second gap goes all the way up to P11. If you want to say it, even P13, which is Alexis Newsom. She's still keeping up with the top 10, even though she had some issues on the barrier outside turn number 4, but she's still within that lead pack. So if she gets a yellow flag, she could benefit from a car repair and then get herself inserted back into the fight of this race. Of course, paying to see if she actually has some engine damage.
Yeah, and even sometimes we don't have the damage on the suspension or in the front wing, but we sometimes, when we hit the wall the way she did, we have some kind of side pod damage that compromised the straight speed. So that's probably one of the reasons she's not able to keep working his way to the grid, but is only able to keep up with the draft.
And by the way, the first car is actually in the pit lane for the new pit strategy, which is the private label Team High driver Connor Harrington. He's been in an off strategy, maybe trying to rely a little bit on the yellow flags to try to make up some ground. He started P10, struggling now P21 as Maletka into the lead once again. We saw 3 wide with Aspie and being involved in it. I think that was Tony Schauman that was getting involved in that to the 3 wide, but now I'll tuck back into 1 again. And we have some trouble. Andrew Marquez, and I think that was Andrew Wood, got into some contact outside of turn number 2, but we're still on screen.
Yeah, they had a moment right there. It was between Marcus and Wood. Wood just lost his car pretty much in the out of turn 2. It's one of those that tricky points later on in the race. Probably used the weight jacker more aggressive that he could afford to it, but he was still in the race, and I think it will not crash for the race for now.
Yeah, and it's going to be complicated to see if Wood and Marquez are going to be able to come back on track. I know for Marquez, that will be about 12 to 13 second repairs for the full front wing. And now Wood's coming back on track. As you look at the replay, Wood's car getting a little bit loose on the exit out of turn number 2. Marcus couldn't do anything whatsoever. Had to go full first head-on contact on the back wing out of the number 14 car, but managed to keep on track. And most importantly, both cars kept it straight and relatively safe under green.
Yeah, for the good sake of the race, hopefully you can go green by the end of the race and see different strategies playing out. But yeah, unfortunately for Andrew and Marcus, that they had the incident, but at least they are back in the race and didn't abandon the race.
Yeah, true that, even though they are 1 lap behind from the whole pack, so they're going to have to rely on some funky strategies and maybe a yellow flag to go on that off-cycle strategy, but they might be safe here. We'll see the pain circumstances to go green all the way.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see. I mean, a lot of teams could have already tried to do the short pit and trying for going for an undercut right now, because we're pretty much in a comfortable fuel window right now. So, but I think they are trying to
turn number 1. Sorry, as Blocker actually goes on the outside, cuts themselves into the entry at turn number 1. Now Blocker P2, he's going to have a little bit of a wild run on the outside. Vanderson had to check up on the inside, He does have had a good run on Maletska, so that will benefit Adam Blocker a little bit. So the Powerslide Motorsport will have the advantage because Vandersand and Maletska will come into the pit lane. So we start definitely our last round of pit stops here, Wilson, for the leaders.
Yeah, what I was going to say is exactly that move by Blocker and Hugo. Let's see, because probably they are trying to go as long as they can and thinking of having a better tires late on the run, because as the race is packy and there's a lot of competitive challenge going on right there, they're probably thinking not to work on the undercut strategy, but in the opposite way, they will have prefer to have better and fresh tires by the end of the race.
And talking about tires, I was actually trying to take some notes from Brendan Trano. Apparently, the tires don't have a whole lot of effect in terms of drop-off because of course, you're in the draft and everything. From your perspective, Wilson, does that really is a fact? Because now we're going to see Hugo coming into the pit lane. Does it really have that big of a drop-off if you have fresher tires, like just say 10 laps fresher, 5 laps fresher than someone that is actually on a later stint? Or just because of the draft that it actually doesn't compensate?
I think it depends on the situation of the track temperature. I mean, for tonight's race, the fresher track, especially if you have like 6 or 7 laps of fresher tires compared to your opponent, that might be worth. But I agree with Trainer, because the tire fall off is not that huge as long as you're able to keep on the draft. But sometimes if you have to full send in the inside and try a different move, that kind of different in better tires can make your move work and be worth for you to win the race.
Yeah, and now you're seeing Blocker. I think I saw also not Ungenice, but I saw someone else coming through the pit lane. That is Austin Aspedy coming in with Adam Blocker. So 2 drivers in the pit lane. So far, no guys in the leaders' positions within that top 10 coming in alone, as we're still having Adam Crane, Ungenice, Mulsum, Newsom, Roofs within that field. John Silva hasn't pitted yet, and Alvarez Bullhead has. Now we're looking at the replay because Shawan had a little bit of a funky entry into the pit lane, hitting the cone, and then nearly nose first into the wall, but managed to save it on the last split second.
Yeah, that was scary for him, but was able to show a good control for the car and not hit the wall and keep in the race.
But he will get a unsafe pit entry, you think?
You know, I already had I already hit the cone at Indy for the Indy 0 race, and I didn't had a penalty. So okay. I'm not sure if he will get that, because I think the simulator sometimes don't consider that you only hit it basically if you go around the cone. So yeah, I don't think that. Let's see if he will get the penalty or not, but maybe there's a chance not to get the penalty.
And you guys saw a little bit of the feisty between Vandersand, Blocker, and Blocker, Maletska, and Vandersand on the entry of turn number 1 and 4 and 3. Drivers trying to share draft 1, and others trying to look on who's that guy on the inside. I really want to say that is Ungenice. No, but that is the number 22. That is actually Ungenice. He's P2 so far, so he's getting unlapped by that pack who just lapped a few laps ago. But Ungenice running way too wide on the exit out of 2, nearly got blocked here on the outside. Actually had to lift off the gas to avoid a major contact that could have been decisive for this race.
Yeah, big moment right there, while Blocker is trying to send in the inside to get the track position. Let's see how that will work for him.
Let's see how that will work for him, because now he's actually on this draft range of the what would be the top 4 of this race, and Ungenice maybe the only driver with Adam Crane right in front of him, which are from the lead pack of the field, who still hasn't pitted, because right behind him there's Alvarez, Roof, Silva that haven't pitted yet. So only 5 cars that haven't fully pitted still in this field, and I'm interested to see where that fuel range will take him. I expect right about lap 80 or 81 for them here, Wilson.
Yeah, I expect that as well, Lorenzo, and let's see after that, because they will have less fuel to add. Probably their pit stop will be faster, so there's a small chance they get back to the track ahead of the pack and then fight for the ring by themselves.
And talking about fast, we have a new fighter in the mix. That is AJ Mulsman coming in like a rocket in turn number 1 and 2 and managing to nearly overtake both drivers. And now you guys just riding that outside line way too much, nearly grazing the wall. But I think there is no damage at all on the engine out of the number 22 car, as he still follows the DRS satellite driver, the leader of this race, which is Adam Crane. But that gap is looking a little bit dangerous for Crane here, Wilson, because once they come out of pit lane, there is a good chance they might not come back into this lead pack, depending on circumstances.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see. I'm curious to see how that pit work will work for them, because you know, they will add less fuel. There's a chance of, I mean, again, get ahead of the pack or not. Very interesting strategies being played out at the moment, and that moment from Rob and Glenix was interesting to see, almost clipping the wall, trying to get the clean air as higher as he could. So that's how important it is to get the clean air, regardless of the line and the track line you choose.
Yes, we're talking about leaders and everything else now. Vandersen now switching back with Maletzka, the leader of the now back of the pack field, but that is actually the leaders pack whenever Ukrainian and Ungonites come into the pit lane. Still 35 laps for Adam Crane, 37 for Ungonites, 36 for Alvarez, 36 for Roof as John Silva comes into the pit lane. So one of the 5 guys that are on track still remaining over here on the track. That was remaining on the track coming into the pit lane. We still have to see these two in the leaders coming into the pit lane do this service.
Yeah, and one of those drivers that were in the pack previously, Hugo also tried to work with Blocker. Apparently, his last pit stop didn't work very good for him because he lost the pack. He will be in a very tough situation to fight for the win at this moment of the race, Lorenzo.
Yeah, and so far, talking about fight for the race, only 9 laps within the leader, the leader lap in this race. The last one being AJ Mulsman, which is the 4th car back in this 4-car pack that has Blocker, Maletzka, and also Vandersen in it. Mulsman is kind of like the 4th car behind. There's also Aspedy. I forgot to mention Austin Aspedy coming into the fray as well. As you can see now, Ungonites being the first car into the pit lane. Adam Crane remains on track.
Yeah, he's probably thinking in get back to the track, maybe in their draft, having good tires. He will have a bullet in his hand, so pretty good chance for him to be aggressive and to fight for that win. I'm pretty sure that's what Crane is thinking at this moment.
Here comes Adam Crane now into the pit lane, as we're about to see Ungonites coming out of pit lane, and the leaders, Maletzka, are about to overtake them. So yeah, it's pretty much what I said. He's not coming back into this lead draft. So I think the problem for Ungonites, he's gonna have to rely on pace alone, try to come back. And I'm trying to look who's the first car right behind him. That is Team Tomes, as he's about a second behind, but he's gonna get closer from Ungonites, so they can work themselves together, trying to claw themselves back into the lead pack.
Yeah, in the moment Crane is going out of the pits. Let's see.
Yeah, let's see where Adam Crane will stay in this lead pack. No, he's gonna get eaten by Maletzka and everybody else. So it's kind of like a mirror what happened to Ungonites, I think, and is gonna get eaten by the leaders, and I think the gap will build up, and now all hell will break loose because we're about 84 laps in. We'll be 85, so we're 16 laps here to go. Aggression time here, Wilson?
Yeah, I think so, especially for Crane. I think he'll be able to catch up the pack, and with a tire in average 15 or 12, 11 in the case of some drivers, he will have fresher tires. Let's see. I expect a lot of aggression for Crane to fight for the win.
And talking about Adam Crane, he's not far behind. Actually, he's going to have the better tires of this field because he has 1 lap in his tires. Everybody else is right about 11 to 15 laps on their stint, so they're going to be a little bit wasted more than usual here on the Michigan track, as now you're seeing Adam Blocker as he's the third car back into this lead pack, trying to work that outside line, getting checked up a little bit by Vandersen. He has to run a wider line, and there is nearly 3 wide into turn number 2 because now Aspity is on the inside line of Blocker, but because he has no one to work with, Blocker will retain P3 once again.
Yeah, interesting moves right now, Lorenzo. They're probably start more aggression and try to mirror drive the other drivers to somehow try to send them to the wall. So yeah, that's the moment of the race that everything gets aggressive and the things get even more interesting.
Talking about interesting, here comes Adam Crane on the inside already of Ungonix, and also AJ Mulseman trying to fight for that inside line with Malecka carrying him on the inside. Blocker now the lead car in this field, so everything can break loose right now because Team Tone's not far behind, and he can actually come and get benefited by his gap is about 2 seconds. But we have only now 7 cars fighting for the lead of this race, and even podium as Vandersen now goes into the lead 3 wide because Malecka is also on the inside fighting for the lead, and he will take it.
Interesting action, 3 wide. Let's see if they can keep doing that by the end of the race. Very interesting movements to see right now, Lorenzo.
Yeah, it's getting dicey. It's getting going to be very interesting as now Crane looks for the middle line. He is P2 right now. He's looking for P1. Malecka right in front of him. Has to go manage to cover Vandersen on the outside. We'll go side by side. Adam Crane now will go back into the lead as Vandersen is now looking on that outside line, going to try to challenge for 3 wide, but Malecka making it a little bit more feisty than usual, fighting that inside line and making it hard for Adam Crane.
Yeah, man, it will be interesting to see because they had traffic ahead. Let's see who will get the huge toll from the left car ahead of them, and there's always some good interesting tactics to see when that happens in the track.
Yeah, and talking about lap traffic, I think that lap traffic, that Alexis Newsome, so that's unfortunate as they go 3 wide. AJ Mulseman on the inside, Malecka on the middle. Outside line is for Adam Crane, who will concede on turn number 1. Neither of them conceding to turn number 1. Actually, the one conceding is Adam Crane on the outside line. So the stronger run will be for Adam Crane as he actually launches himself. Mulseman has to tuck back now. Here comes Adam Crane on the inside. Blocker trying to follow suit. He's not going to have a good run. Alexis is now right in front of him. She's going to get eaten by the leaders. So that might benefit a little bit of Malecka on the outside. He actually really blocks. Nearly blocks Crane on the inside line. And but Malecka managed to retake P1 out of Adam Crane.
Yeah, that was a bit scary, but Alexis did a great job holding the outside line and let the pack go through. So yeah. Hopefully they survived through all that, because sometimes that cannot end ending very well, Lorenzo.
Yeah, we can actually, this is either going to happen end in tears or it's going to actually end in tears. So we're about not long left to go, 10 to go here on the Michigan International Speedway. Blockers trying to move up, going for the outside line of both of them. Crane covering the inside, Malecka covering the outside, and Malecka might have the better run on the outside line as Blocker now going for the over and under. 3 wide in the back straight as Blocker now will take P1 out of both drivers, and now the Powerslide Motorsports, the number 3 car in this field is P1.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see how Blocker is able to hold the inside line. I think he's the only driver who is trying his chance running closer to the white line, especially in turns 1 and 2. The other drivers try to keep one line up, but yeah, interesting things, moves to see by the end of the race. A promise of a good and maybe a photo finish by the end of it, Lorenzo.
We could definitely see maybe a 4 wide finish here on Michigan International Speedway. 9 to go as Adam Crane now takes back the lead once again. Blocker on that outside line. I could see Vandersen try to work the inside, try to go for a better run on the inside line of both all 3 drivers, but then you guys try to follow suit. Now Blocker on the inside goes, but there's Adam Crane, actually forces Malecka on the outside line. Crane covers it off, blocks Adam Blocker into the inside line, and then everything gets clunkered up because now you guys might have a better run on the outside line, but now getting covered up. Adam Crane fighting for it. Malecka now getting the better run on the outside, side by side into turn number 3. They go nearly a wheel touch. Blocker now comes into the outside line, trying to get a better run. Who's following right behind him? That is actually Unionized Vandersen on the inside. Blocker moves into the inside once again as we are 7 to go, and now Blocker moves into the lead.
Yeah, and then we try to mirror drive them to get there on the so they can not carry that much speed in the corner. So interesting move by Blocker here, but let's see if he can try to defend in the inside, but will not be easy because Crane on those fresh tires will have a good chance to do his moves as well.
Yeah, talking about good chances. Crane getting in middle line, trying to go for the over and under here on Blocker. Vandersen tried to do the same, but now Crane will have that launch on Blocker. He will launch himself into P1. Vandersen trying to use the outside line. Maletzka with a stronger run will go for the inside of Adam Crane. Now Maletzka goes back into the lead. Vandersen now on the middle line trying to go for the run. Gets covered up, but actually checks up Blocker, which checks up eventually Eugenix, and I think that checked up Mulserman as well. So everybody getting checked up with about 5 to go.
Yeah, we had a huge moment between Vandersen and Blocker out of turn 2. Almost had a contact between them, but they're following the race.
And still in the race, everybody, as Maletzka try to go for that outside run on Adam Crane. Outside line getting covered by Maletzka, middle for Crane, lower line for Vandersen. He's trying to work a whole lot on that line now. Blocker with the major launch. Crane covers Maletzka on the outside. Crane on the inside. He's going to be outside. Blocker on the inside.
Yeah, apparently it worked for them, Lorenzo, but here comes Maletzka once again. Yeah, it seems that we had some issues with Lorenzo, lost in his connection, and yeah, we'll take over from here. From the moment we see Adam Crane working with his better tires in the inside line, Blocker trying to work his way with Robin Glenix and Maletzka as well. Let's see how they can do that right here in turns 1 and 2. Very good actions here. 2 laps to go.
2 laps to go here in this race. I'm actually back, people. We had some Sim Racing World issues as Crane covers the inside. Maletzka on the outside. Eugenix try to go for that run on the inside line of Crane. He's not going to have any room whatsoever to work with. Now Blocker, you can see on the outside trying to go for the over and under as he is about to go into 1 lap to go here. And Adam Crane will lead us off for the final lap of this race.
Final lap, very interesting to see 4 wide. Maybe Lorenzo, let's see.
Yeah, talking about that interesting, a little bit of wheel-to-wheel contact between Maletzka and Crane. And we can see Blocker try to go for the run. Oh, we have contact! We have contact between Maletzka and Blocker. Crane now trying to cover a little bit of Eugenix on the inside. Blocks off. Eugenix on the entry on turn number 3. Here goes Vandersen. We can actually have a photo finish here on the track as Eugenix is going to have that run. And Crane is going to be able to cover it off. Yes, he will. Adam Crane will win this race.
Yeah, that was intense, Lorenzo.
That was intense as hell as Adam Crane manages to get P1 and Maletzka getting that outside run just couldn't cover whatsoever. Got a little bit of wheel-to-wheel contact. Adam Blocker was involved in it. That opened the door for Eugenix to come to the inside. Gets majorly blocked off by Adam Crane on the entry of turn number 3. Didn't get the good run into the outside. That kind of brings Alex Vandersen into it. And you can see a little bit of dissatisfaction between the drivers. Boy, this is not NASCAR. This is Indy, so this is kind of different. But the winner of this race, and he has all the rights to celebrate, is Adam Crane, the VRS satellite racing driver, reigns supreme at the Michigan International Speedway.
Yeah, unfortunately, he had a bit of moment out of turn 2, and the car just got loose, and he was able to control the car, but in spite of that, he was not able to keep holding his line and had a small contact with Robert that was unfortunate for Robert and Blocker, who was right behind him. They just got contact and ending the race with a bad luck.
Now, with that being said, let's go for the race results, and we'll take it again after. Actually, let's take a look at the replay. What happened first? And looked like Crane's car dipped off a little bit to the outside more than usual and got most of Maletska by surprise, which actually got into contact. Blocker was on that outside line preparing for the launch, caught off by surprise with the contact off Maletska and Crane and couldn't do anything. The Power Slide Motorsports driver getting involved and actually will finish this race. Still will finish relatively okay within the top 15, maybe top 15, but I'm not sure how it's going to happen. Let's take a look on the race results here as we just went 100 laps at the Michigan International Speedway. As Adam Crane leads off with the win in this race, Rob Mugenix finishes P2, Alexander Vandersand is third, Austin Aspedy is fourth, with AJ Moosman from the All-American iRaces with Turn 4 Racing is fifth. Hugo Olsen, the first of the Powerline Motorsports drivers, is sixth. Team Tomes, seventh. Aaron Roops, eighth. Matthew Thurn, ninth. And Adam Blocker, after that incident, rounds up the top 10 in this field. Then we have John Silva, P11, with Connor Harrington, P12. So good recovery race for the private label Team Hype Team Talent driver, with Tony Schauer, P13. Andrew Marquez from Loose Nut Racing, P14. Antonio Alvarez, P15. Andrew Wood, Chris Woolhide rounds up P16 and 17. Matt Hollybaugh is 18th, with Jonathan Oshalem and Robert Maletska, unfortunately, with that incident finishing in the 20th spot in this field. Alexis Newsom is at 20th first, and Carlos Ruiz and Marco Aurelio Brazil are the only guys that didn't finish this race. We're the only DNFs. P22, P23 in this field here, Wilson. And second race of the season, and again, we got another thriller. And I was promised action when I was actually going to cover this, and then they haven't failed to deliver action once again.
Yeah, didn't fail at all. It was pretty much an interesting race, very funny to see. Teams trying to work together was not being easy, although, and there were a lot of green flag stops and strategies. So yeah, Crane had a very good strategy. He had very fresher tires by the end of the race, which was worth for him. Unfortunately, the race didn't end up in a photo finish for a while, the way we like to see, Lorenzo. But yeah, that's kind of a thing that happens during the race, especially when you're trying to keep it push hard in the last lap, trying to get to the limit. Sometimes that happens, unfortunately, for those guys who got wrecked for them. But I'm pretty sure that everybody who was able to watch the race had fun, and especially for those three guys who was able to get in the podium tonight.
And talking about podium, let's bring up Alex Vandersand over here, because he's been one of these drivers that got benefited with the incident. So Alex, first and foremost, congratulations on the podium, but talk us through the entirety of the race, but most specifically that final lap. Talk to us from that perspective. What happened?
Yeah, that was wild. I haven't looked at the replay in detail, but it looks like Adam got loose and then overcorrected, and it walled Robert. So shame that it ended that way, but really awesome respectful racing between everybody up in that front. It was awesome working with Robert throughout the whole thing to leapfrog, and we just absolutely controlled that race until the end. Gave us better tires and it gave us a gap, so yeah, worked out.
Yeah, it worked out at the end. And I really want to know, was pitting basically around lap 67 or 68 the strategy for you at the start of the race, or you had to adapt at some point in this race, and you're thinking, oh, the leaders are pitting, I'm going to try to follow them as well and to see how that works out? And did Crane going for that overcut surprise you at all?
It did a little bit, yeah. So if it stayed green, the strategy was pretty straightforward. Fuel window was very wide. So, Robert and I, we were on a Discord call together, so we were communicating. We knew from the first set of stops that the undercut was fairly strong, and there was a decent chance we could gap the field. Rob staying out was like the glue that kept everybody with us. But if we could execute well again early and get that a couple laps of an undercut, there was a chance we would just be able to run away with it together. Didn't quite work out, but it did give us the fresh tires, clean air, and it thinned out the pack for sure.
And talking about Michigan, because I think this is the second race I covered with you, and you got a top 5 spot. Now, this time you got the podium in the Speedway, in the Lionheart Speedway Series. You got top 5. You got actually 5th. Can we say you actually found your stride in this 2-mile track?
Yeah, I've always liked Michigan. Even since starting iRacing last year, it was one of the first fixed races I did. So I've always had a lot of fun here. It's not an easy track. It's difficult to win, but it's easy to drive and have really good close racing with people. So you can really learn a lot from it just from driving it. Did well in Lionheart, did well today. Just really proud of my run overall.
Right on. And before we let you go, anybody want to give any shout outs from your team and anybody watching at home?
Yeah, big thanks to Robert Malechka for working with me through that, and AJ and Matt were with me as well. Big thanks to my personal sponsor, Happy Trails Chili Company, as well as elmcgear.com, and thanks to you guys for putting on this awesome broadcast and supporting the community.
Thank you very much. And again, Alex, well done on the podium. And can't wait to see what you actually do on the Lionheart, because I think you got the 500 coming up, and I think you got to prep for that, right?
Oh, yeah, really looking forward to it. I've had an awesome season there, exceeding all my goals, so hopefully I can put together a couple more strong runs.
All right, right on. And Alex, again, congratulations. Can't wait to see what you do next.
Thanks, Lorenzo.
All right, that was Alex van der Sand, driver out of the number 17 car. Got P3 over here after that Hattic incident. I think we got nobody else coming in for the interviews. So let's take a look at the schedule as we have a few other races. Now we exit Michigan. We're going to take a stroll down into Ohio, mid-Ohio. Not pun intended over here. That was, if I even tried to go for a pun, that would have been a very bad pun. But we go now into Mid-Ohio, which now is a very interesting track here, Wilson. I think that is the next round of the IndyCar Racing Series, which is also going to the NTT IndyCar Series. So another road track, and a very tricky track, totally different from Road America if you are talking about racing whatsoever.
Yeah, Mid-Ohio is a very tricky track, especially the last sector, but either way is a place to drive, I like the track so much, so it's always a fun and good challenge to drive there, especially because you don't have that much lot of spots to work your overtakes. You pretty much sometimes have to work on the opponent's error, so yeah, it will be hard, but with the push to pass and maybe some tire strategy that we might be able to see during the race, we can there's a huge chance to see a lot of good action in the next week as well.
Yeah, that last sector, you basically are spot on. Starting from Thunder Valley, which is basically turn 11, turn 12, and turn 10, depending on circumstances, then going all the way to the final turn, leading from the carousel is going to be really interesting, nevertheless. But for us at RaceSpotTV, just to let you guys know, track coverage was actually done by Ace of Ballo from Track Cams 22, with additional cameras provided by our own producer, Tyler Maxson. I am Lorenzo Bonder. I've been with Wilson Nato. We'll be coming back again next week with Mid-Ohio. But for now, take it easy, everybody, and have a really good night.